Right. Thank you, Amy. So we all good to go? All right. Is everyone ready? All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your patience, and welcome to this hearing for the second day. You'll see that there is an agenda for today, and I did allow for 30 minutes of introductions and to outline the procedure and some preliminary matters. But given that pretty much we're all the same people here today, there's no need for introductions. But I just want to briefly say that Miss Huaki, who was unable to turn up yesterday, she's going to be appearing by Zoom today. So if there's going to be any exhibits that you want to produce, perhaps just let Ms. Phillips know. In terms of, you'll see that there's the Salvation Army who's going to give evidence, and then there's also Te Health. Ordinarily, I would do in their order excluding all witnesses, but I just wanted to check with you, Ms. Rawcliffe, in terms of Serene Teokotai, I'm told that, well, I've been asked whether if it's okay for her to sit through and listen to the evidence of others, except when Tanya gives evidence, and then she can be outside when Tanya gives evidence, or would you rather she be excluded from
I'm fine with her to sit through.
Sit through, okay, even with Tanya? Or just get her to wait?
Just probably for that one,
just for that, okay, no, that's fine. And then in terms of Alison Coughlin, who is the second witness for Salvation Army, I'll just make sure that she is outside as well when Ms. Hickard gives evidence. So I will formally make an order excluding all witnesses for now. And then in terms of the order of things, I suppose we'll just go through all the witnesses that we have for today. It may be that if we finish early this morning and we're still waiting on Councillors Thompson and Taureki, then we'll start at 11 o'clock. But we'll just have to see how that goes this morning. All right.
Just have one question in regard to Alison Crawford. Is she a witness or an objector? If she's an objector, she's entitled to stay in.
No, that's right. And I understand that Alison Coughlin is a witness because the objector is Anna, isn't it? Is that right?
I'm not sure. That's the question.
No, you're right. I mean, if she's an objector, then she's more than welcome to stay. But if she is a witness.
At 127, the objection document is signed off by Anna for the Salvation.
Yeah. Okay. Any other issues?
I just had one issue about admissibility of evidence in Ms. Eaker's statement. Should I address it now, or should we wait till it's called?
Just what paragraph?
Paragraph 5. The quote from Mr. Douglas, obviously he's not available to take any questions on what's set out in that quote, and also paragraph. Oh, sorry, that's in their objection, so that's fine. I'll leave that, and I'll put submissions on that. And sorry, paragraph 17 of her evidence in relation to information about a hearing in Tokoroa.
Okay. I suppose, again, I think you can probably take it from us that if it's hearsay or something that you consider as inadmissible, bring it to our attention. But at the end of the day, it's just a matter of weight, right?
Absolutely. I just did want to bring that, particularly paragraph 17 to Tokoroa, because it's obviously irrelevant to this application and about something that we hadn't known of that evidence before this.
Yep. No, that's fine. And if there's questions asked about it and you consider it's not appropriate, then please let us know.
Yes, will do. Thank you.
Okay. Any other matters? Agencies? So we're happy to go through the same order as yesterday. We'll start with the agency. We'll start with the sergeant and then the medical officer of health and then the inspector. So you happy with that? Yeah. You happy with it?
We would like the second in the questioning rather than the agencies than council. Council had to go to be second yesterday. I think the opportunity for us to go second in questioning today.
What do you mean?
My concern is that the objectors in my opinion, should be treated with a bit more leniency. They are public objectives. The amendment in the Act is to encourage public objectives. I think it just gets a bit difficult for them sometimes to deal with it. They are inexperienced.
So, but if we change the order of things around, how does that help them?
It means that we can cover off where they may have missed something in their script of dealing with giving evidence. Bring them back in line. I mean, if
They're more than welcome to have legal representation, and if they decide they don't get legal representation, then you should be advocating for them.
If the committee is happy with the order, that's fine.
Okay, we'll stick to the order as yesterday. Okay. Any other matters? All right. So we will have Ms. Ana Ika. Please, would you come? Yeah, sit down.
Well, tell me. It's wrong, I want to get. To speak to people, so the speakers can you please state your full name for the record? Anna Ika. Do you swear by Almighty God that the evidence you are about to give touching the matters before this licensing committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. Good morning. Is it Ms. Ika?
Yeah.
Now, Ms. Ika, you're an objector. Perhaps before we start, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Kia ora koutou katoa and Malalei. My name is Ana Ika. I'm a social policy analyst and advocate. The Salvation Army has a social policy and parliamentary unit. So that's kind of the advocacy wing of the Salvation Army. So we write all legal submissions and all sorts of different submissions across the country. So I'm based in Auckland, but our unit covers the whole country from Kaitaia to Invercargill. Yeah, and I hold the alcohol advocacy portfolio. So anything around alcohol licensing objections, I do majority of that work for the Salvation Army and support our frontline staff to be able to engage in these types of processes.
Thank you. Now, you have previously filed a brief of evidence, and this is on page 128 in the bundle that we've got. But your brief of evidence is dated the 26th of August 2024. You'll need to verbalise that, sorry.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Thank you. And you confirm the truth and accuracy of what's been put in your brief?
At the time, yeah.
Thank you. Now, we've all read your brief of evidence, so we don't need you to read it out loud today, so it's taken as read. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around the table to ask whether people have any questions for you, okay?
Just even done it for you.
So you've got
Oh, I've got my brief.
I'll just be asking questions about the bundle.
Yes, the bundle, yes.
Sure that she had it
No.
available to her.
We'll just put that bundle to one side for now. So what I'm going to do is I'll ask the agencies if they have any questions for you, okay? Sergeant?
Further questions. How well do you know the Nawton Law area complex?
Not personally, not very well. I have I have, when I write these objections, I check in with our frontline staff to ask them about whether we should object or what do they see in the area, the level of harm that they see. So I did check in with our SASH staff that was in Nawton. And so they were able to relay that, and a lot of our families do go there for shopping, etc.
From your review of the stats, how would Nawton compare to other areas in Norton?
I couldn't be able to compare. When I do the work, I usually primarily focus on our clients. So how many clients do we have in that area? What are the levels of need that we're trying to support of those clients in that area? So the way that the Salvation Army drafts our objections is that we primarily focus on the area, and we primarily focus on the need of those that we support in that area. So we don't do comparisons to other areas, because we focus on our clients that live in the 2-kilometre proximity of the store.
Excellent. So your clients that you've based us on are clients within that Nawton area?
Yeah.
Or Greater Nawton area if you go out to 2Ks?
Yeah. So just so I would have taken the proposed address, and then on our system I can map where all our clients are. And then the last time I did it was when I was preparing the brief, which was in August, and then using those clients, which is about 400, I look at sort of the level of need. So I do that on the side, as well as check in with our frontline staff.
Yeah. I will jump straight to the area that council has an issue around hearsay. You've produced some commentary around Tokoroa. Can you explain a little bit why you've done that?
Yeah, I guess it's because our job is also like our service, which you will hear from Alison soon, is sort of like the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. But the role of my role and the role of my unit for the wider Salvation Army is to sort of look at what are things that are working in other areas, or what are things that could mitigate alcohol harm. And so that's why in our brief of evidence I provided that example in Tokoroa, because Nawton has a high population of Māori, also high deprivation that's similar in regard to some of the stats, not all of them, because you can't really to the Nawton area. It's a high Māori population, high deprivation area, and you would have seen in the brief of evidence when those alcohol off licenses weren't operating, there was a decline in the level of harm that the police were seeing, and also the medical health officer. So that's why I wanted to bring that in front of the DRC, just to be able to illustrate that when it comes to pokie machines, we have a sinking lid policy, but when it comes to off licenses, we don't. And so it's very rare to lose off licenses in high deprivation areas. And so we don't see the decrease in harm that we saw in Tokoroa. That's a very rare case. And so that's why I included in my brief of evidence to show that the Smugglers Nawton has been closed for just over a year, and so if it could be closed a little bit longer, we might be able to see those levels of harm in regards to this levels of stats. Sorry, I just rambled, but I hope that makes sense. Really clarified.
That's fine. That was a good answer. Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Medical Officer Cup.
I was four on your evidence. You mentioned that you have 5 key areas that you classified. This key area then responds to needs, am I right?
Yeah. So we have, it's sort of like the mothership of our unit. We've released a report called State of the Nation. So it's kind of like a snapshot of the social well-being of the entire country. And those 5 key areas are children and youth, housing, working incomes, crime and punishment, and social hazards. And so alcohol falls into that social hazards chapter, which the social hazards, illicit drug use, and financial hardship. And so those 5 chapters are all the areas that the Salvation Army works in. And so, but you, in another paragraph later on my brief evidence, I highlighted that alcohol harm is actually an undercurrent in majority of those 5 other working areas that we have. So that's why we put a lot of resources in trying to engage around advocating for alcohol harm reduction. But those are the sort of five key areas that our unit works in. That the Salvation Army works in.
Thank you. And then paragraph 7, second line, but also witnesses its widespread effects on the aspect of our work. Can you please elaborate on this other aspect of your work?
Yeah, so for example, we have a myriad of services in the Salvation Army. If I could give a few examples, in our financial mentoring, which is helping families with budgeting, we get families that come in, that are asking for budgeting service, because what MSD has changed how they work now, so they need sort of budgeting before they approve, for sort of welfare increases or food grants. And so they come to our budgeting, and so we kind of, it feels intrusive, but it's our role to try and help them get on top of their finances. And so some of the examples, many of the examples that we see is a family member would use the grocery money on alcohol, and then that would create like family violence instances. And so even though that particular client came in for the food bank, who came into our financial mentoring, we would then refer them on to our social work team to be able to help them in regards to the family harm that's occurred because the grocery money is gone to alcohol. So we see like those sorts of instances quite a fair bit, not only in our food banks, but our financial mentoring. And we also run like positive lifestyle programs in our core, which is what we call the church. And that we run sort of like anger management programs for men, youth programs, single mom programs, and would say in those PLP programs, probably like a significant percentage of them have been impacted directly by family harm, and often it involves alcohol in that space. So we try and wrap around as much as we can. So if there are red flags going up in one area because of alcohol, we try and push them to our bridge services, but sometimes our bridge services, because you'll hear from Alison, it's sort of the acute end of addictions. And so we would try and get them into sort of our recovery approach or other areas to be able to help with those levels of alcohol harm. So that's what I mean by in the bridge, it's like the primary issue is alcohol, but then in other services, the underlying issues, if we track back and find the roots, it's something to do with alcohol and mental health, alcohol and grief and loss. Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. And how has the demand for services changed over the past, say, 2 years?
Significantly, it's changed significantly, particularly in the last sort of year and a bit, with a lot of changes around MSD. There's been a lot of changes around MSD, a lot of changes around crime order. And so that's created a huge impact on the need for our services. Not only have there been policy changes in regards to how the ministries have been working, but there's been a lot of funding cuts. I think we've seen on the news, OT contracts have been gone, MSD funding, financial mentors have been gone. The funding that came in for food banks have been gone as well. Fortunately for the Salvation Army, it's quite a big organization, and so we've been able to try and pull some reserves through to try and keep it going, because our primary focus is to support the community, and so the level of need just continues to increase, and it's often like complex. So they might come in for food, and then when we dig a little bit deeper, there's housing issues there, and so we try and get them into sort of temporary or affordable housing. But we're seeing a lot more challenges in regards to homelessness, with families living in cars and everything. But really grateful for our developments in Nawton. That's really made a big difference for the level of need that we're seeing here in Hamilton.
Thank you for that. And looking at the community, there's a lot about the proportion of minorities in the Nawton community. Is there any noticeable pattern or difference in terms of our correlated specific somebody or a specific community that you know of?
Yeah, we've got a significant proportion of our type to filed are Māori. I mean, like, I think from a policy perspective and a stats perspective, hazardous drinking is significantly higher in Māori and Pacific populations. Also, heavy episodic drinking monthly and weekly is higher in Māori and Pacific as well, and predominantly also in younger men. And Māori and Pacific have significant, the population, they have a younger population, and so there's a lot more in the age category where there's hazardous drinking for Māori and Pacific. So yeah, I mean, I know from the stats in my role, but I also know from our frontline services and the level of need coming through our front doors, that there's a disproportionate impact on Māori and Pacific.
Thank you. Paragraph 11. you did mention that the Salvation Army in Hamilton support more than 2,500 families. So by families, they say that, is it, can you elaborate on that? Is it one person in one family or one person directly and then the other person indirectly? Can you explain that further, what you mean by families?
So we support, some of the 2,500 is just individuals, but some of them, like the mum would come in and we would, when they come in to ask us for support, we often ask them like, who's in your household, how many dependents do you have, just so that we can give them adequate support. Yeah, and so some of them would be classed as individuals and some of them would be classed as like a mum and dad with 5 kids or single mum with 7 kids sort of situation. Yeah, but they would all be they would all be accounted in that 2,500.
So if I'm hearing you right, that means that the students of schools that are around the area too will be classed chunked under the family.
Sorry, can you repeat the
If
question?
I'm understanding you right,
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong. So since you say some of them are parents with kids, so that means the kids could potentially be students from schools that are part of the family, right?
So this number would be a lot higher if we accounted for the dependents. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Inspector?
Kia ora, Anna. Just a couple of questions. You don't work specifically in the Nawton area, yours is a general approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're not, okay, that's cool. So it kills one question I was going to ask you. How well do you know the Hamilton area from your experience?
I mean, I know the stats that I have to look up really well. I just want to note that I'm not the first protocol when it comes to licensing, to show up at licensing hearings. Usually I would try my best to be able to bring the local staff in to be able to appear in front of you all today. But I was only able to get Alison to come through and our other staff
That's fine.
available.
The question I'm leading up to is in paragraph 11, you talk about the Salvation Army support more than 2,500 family. Many services in the Nawton area, which you've outlaid, which is really helpful, and roughly around 400 clients that live within 2 kilometres of the Nawton shopping centre. So that's useful statistics. For the rest of Hamilton, how does this compare to other areas of Hamilton? How does the Nawton area and the services that you're providing the families you've had to help, how does that compare to other areas of Hamilton?
Like I said prior, when we prepare objections, I primarily just look at the area that the proposed store is, and we don't really do comparisons with other areas.
So you wouldn't be able to rate any other services or issues for other areas?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Morning, Mr. Buckley. Can you hear and see us?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, so thank you. Do you have any questions for the witness?
Yes, I do. Thank you for letting me join you online this morning. Anna, good morning.
Morning, Alison.
Can I just ask you a few questions? First of all, just a sort of very general question. Did you write your own objection?
Yes, I write almost all of the objections on behalf of Salvation Army, but also run it past Communities Against Alcohol Harm and the community law just to see if there's any areas that I've missed in regards to making sure that it falls under section 105.
All right, thank you, Anna. And did you also write your brief of evidence?
Yep. Yes, I did. Jaden from Community Law and Car were able to run sort of a workshop for the community as to sort of guide us and how do we put a brief of evidence together.
Thank you, Anna. I want to ask you a question or two about the community of Nawton East, what one might describe as a vulnerable community. And I want to ask you in relation to your objection, why is it that you only provided information about the deprivation of the community, about Maori, about the clients that you deal with? Why did you only provide information about those in Nawton East?
As I said prior, when we develop objections, we primarily only look at the area where that proposed store is going into. And we do that right across the country because it's important. And we only look at our clients because when I file these submissions, it's filed on behalf of the Salvation Army and with what the in light of what the Salvation Army's work does. So that's why I primarily focus on the area and on our clients in proximity to the store.
Sorry, Anna, I interrupted.
Sorry, Carlton, did I answer your question?
Yeah, so I just have one sort of connected question, if I may, just to press a little further on this point. I'm interested to know why it was that you didn't provide any information about nearby areas, and in particular, Western Heights.
Like I said, we primarily focus on where all our clients are based. And so that's why we're focused on the Nawton area.
All right, thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. I have no further questions, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. Ms. Walker.
Yes, morning. You have given evidence this morning that you prepared, one sentence, you prepared this objection, which is at page 124 of the bundle to 127. So, as if I understand it, you prepared it and then you ran it past Communities Against Alcohol Harm and Jaden just to fix anything up that you might have missed. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so when I read through the objection at the start, I can see that that's about the Salvation Army. And then from paragraph 7 onwards, so that you've written from paragraph 7 onwards?
Yeah, all of our sort of objections have this section, and they sort of take the same, it's the same structure. CAR helped us a couple of years ago to try and build sort of a structure so that I could send to our staff so they can object on their own. I mean, this is if you see any of our other objections in any other schools, it takes the same format.
But this is specifically what the Salvation Army has an issue with, is that correct?
Yeah.
It's just when I read this, and then when I read some of the other objections, such as from Hapai Te Haora, which is at page 92, the content is extremely similar. Did you work with them to prepare this?
We work with Communities Against Alcohol Harm and Community.
Okay, because if you look at there's on page 92. And there's section on vulnerable communities starts at paragraph 4 and it starts at paragraph 7 because you've obviously got Salvation Army specific information staff.
Yeah.
And then it's when you read through each of those and all the areas, it's extremely similar. So did you write this or did Communities Against Alcohol Harm write this?
I wrote this. And then we worked together with Communities Against Alcohol Harm.
Okay, so these specific things you can speak to in this objection, all of the points that have raised?
Yeah, we work together with Communities Against Alcohol Harm, so they sort of help us to guide us. And this is sort of the formula, this is the structure that they've given us, and we've kind of worked on top of it. So you would note that in some of the structure that ones that they've given us, we've also included Salvation Army numbers to provide some context there. So in paragraph 7, we note in that last sentence that 56% of those we support in Hamilton are Māori. And then again, when we're looking at paragraph 9, at the end of it, we talk about the harm that the Salvation Army sees, and that's why we think the Menenia good order of the area would be affected. So we work together with Communities Against Alcohol Harm, but we also put context into what the Salvation Army is working on as well.
Okay, so they would provide that base and then you add to it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not that it started with you and then went to them. Did it start with them on this part and then come to you to add in your specific information? Yeah, so it's the same structure. We've been working with Communities Against Alcohol Harm for years, and so this is the structure that we use, and then we kind of just build on top of it and then send it back to them to see if there's anything there that needs to be that we could probably provide more insight on from our perspective and context. So when you prepared this, you read the application that had been filed? Yeah. And so you had concerns with all the points. Did you initially raise all the points about the application, or did that come from Communities Against Alcohol related harm? We work together with Communities Against Alcohol Harm, because like I said when I was talking to Carleton, sometimes when communities, because I know under the Act, and I'm a policy analyst and I find it difficult, so I can just imagine what everyone else, how difficult everyone else finds it. We don't know how to make what the level of need and harm that we're seeing in our community, how that fits, how do we make that fit into Section 105 of the Act? And so that's why we primarily work with them, so that they can try and guide us. Okay, I understand that. No, and I do understand that these things can be daunting experiences for everyone involved in terms of process. And I just wanted to understand how much was Salvation Army's views, because that's what we're here to hear from, is Salvation Army views. And I acknowledge the great work that you do in this community, but just talking specifically, I'm obviously here just to talk to this application about the opening of the store in Nawton. You were asked some further questions about the map that you produced, and your lawyer asked you some questions. Oh, sorry, it's not the lawyer. Mr. Buckley asked you some questions about why you only used the statistic for this blue area on the map, so on page 125, about Nawton East, because obviously when you look at Nawton East, that gives a decile rating of 10. And he was asking you some questions about why you use that, and you said you just looked at Nawton and he asked about Western Heights. But then when I read your evidence, when I heard you speak just now, you were talking about a 2-kilometre proximity that you were assessing. So to get your number of 400, that actually radiuses out 2 kilometres around the store, doesn't it? Yep. So if you talk about 2-kilometre radius, shouldn't the statistics have, in terms of deprivation, related to that 2-kilometre radius? I mean, we could. The issue that we have is when you sort of take a wider area in regards to deprivation levels, is like just because your neighbour's doing well off doesn't necessarily mean that the level of need for the individuals living in the immediate area is doesn't mean it gets less, if that makes any sense. No, but the deprivation levels are the average of an area. Yeah. So what you've presented is this mesh block and outlined in blue, and so you've talked to us about how that's a decile 10, and then that has formed the basis of your assumptions about the level of need and deprivation and vulnerability. And then, but then when you talk to us about the statistics and the number you're supporting, you've pushed the area out much further, so that you've gone from a 200 metres square, maybe not even 100 metres around the store, out to 2 kilometres. So why, when you're talking about Nawton and that 2 kilometre radius, why are you then just focusing in on that coastal area?
I can't answer that. That's just to highlight the level of deprivation in the immediate area of the proposed premise.
Yeah, because I mean, the map was produced yesterday, which everyone here has, and I might just hand you that map. So the black dot sort of in the centre of that represents where the store is, and your line and your map is that area running around that store. So that's the area that you've used, but you'll see that just across the road, that's another area. So that's Nawton West. And if you look at the deprivation level for Nawton West, that's a level, that's a 7. So Nawton West would fall in your 2 kilometre radius, wouldn't it? And then even out to Western Heights, that also falls into the 2 kilometre radius, doesn't it?
Yep.
So, and Western Heights is a 2 in terms of deprivation level. So when you add those all together and average them, it's not 10, it's significantly less. So do you accept that when you're talking about a decile 10, you've just focused in on a very discrete area just around the store?
No, that's the reason why we provide the numbers of our clients and the need of our clients in addition to this map that we've provided. I mean, as I said before, the reason why we have issues with averaging out the deprivation levels in these areas, like just because Western Heights is a 2 doesn't mean that the level of need in like 200 metres across all however far Nawton East is, doesn't mean the level of need in that community declined. And so I guess that's our issue when you try and take the deprivation levels, add them together and then average them out, because that necessarily doesn't average out the need. There's still a significant level of need. And so that's why we try and focus, as everybody has been asking me, we primarily focus on the number of our clients and the level of need of our clients, because our submission and our objection is for our clients.
Yes, and I understand that, but in terms of if you did that all the way across New Zealand, the need of your clients would never change, would it? You know what I mean? So you could go as small or as large. What you're saying to us is that you have clients who need your services.
No, what I'm saying is, if I pulled up this map and it was low deprivation, but we still had a significant number of clients, we would still object. But if I pulled up this map and at a high deprivation and a low number of clients, then we wouldn't object, purely because our objections are driven by the need of our clients, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so I think you were asked some questions to try and work out, because there's 2,500 across the whole of Hamilton and 400 of those are in Nawton, but you can't speak to where the others are, can you?
No.
Okay, and so would you accept that in that 2 kilometre radius, there'll be some data produced later, that there's about 30,000 in that 2 kilometre radius, 30,000 people living in there?
I wouldn't know that number.
Okay, so if we're looking at a population of 30,000, you support 400 families, so that could be an increased family unit. So in terms of of your objection at paragraph 9, you talk about there, so you talk about that the closest store is 1.2 kilometres away. So do you know where that store is?
Avalon Drive.
Okay, and so when you've done that measure, did you do that measurement?
No, Car would have done that measurement.
Okay, so they've produced that for you. Okay, so but I suppose it makes it hard for me to ask why they measured it. If they did that, it's hard for me to ask you why you would measure it from where the store is. Because of course, you're talking about, so that measurement would only be relevant if you lived right next to the store, wouldn't it? In terms of how far it is, because I say, you know, I assume your submission is it's not too far to get to another store.
Yeah.
But there's not a store there, is there?
You mean, sorry, can you rephrase your question?
So when, and I know this is hard because it's not, you didn't write this, but when it says the closest bottle store is 1.2 kilometres away, that's not the closest bottle store, is it? That's the closest bottle store to where, if you were standing on in Nawton Mall where there is no bottle store.
Correct.
So
So it would be closer.
closer to what?
So if, for example, if you were standing in like one of our clients' houses that lived within that 2 kilometre, wouldn't it be closer to that store?
Oh, sorry. So if you look at the map, maybe just so that I can understand what you're saying. So you've done your measurement from the black dot to Avalon, which, do you know where Avalon Drive is?
No.
Okay, so Avalon Drive is the edge of the boundary, so the edge of that orange line running along the top
Okay.
right.
Yep.
So that's Avalon Drive's that route. So when we're talking about there's a store closed, you've measured it from starting from that position. But that's not how a measurement goes, because that would be when there was a store and then you'd say there's another one close to it. But if you're living out the top of this map here, it's actually much further than 1.2 kilometres to get to Avalon Drive, isn't it?
Yes, but if you were living closer to that store, then it would be closer.
Well, yeah, okay. I think we'll probably go round and round. So I can just make submissions on that because, yeah. And then you say in paragraph 16 of your evidence, so that's at page 131, that there are already too many alcohol outlets in the Nawton area. And then in paragraph 18, you talk about availability of alcohol in an already saturated area.
Sorry, you reading the.
Sorry, this is in the brief, but the brief's also in the bundle, sorry,
Okay.
so that's so in your brief, paragraph 16. You talk about too many outlets in the Nawton area. And then in paragraph 18 over the page, you talk about availability of alcohol in a saturated area. So what other outlets are there in Nawton that you're talking about?
I can't answer that, sorry.
Because if I say to you that there's no other stores in Nawton,
Yeah.
would that change your view about, well, then there isn't too many because there's none. So is your evidence that one is too many?
In a high deprivation area, yes. On the Salvation Army's perspective, we would say yes.
So, sorry, and then when you say high deprivation, you're going back to your statistics about.
So if I could just explain, we have a policy when we're objecting to alcohol licenses. So we don't object to every single alcohol license, but we do object to alcohol license where there's a density of clients. And so we have sort of a threshold, and if there's a high threshold of our clients that live in this area, then we would object. And for this particular area, because we've got a high number of clients, we would deem that as deprived, if that makes sense.
So what's the number?
The number
Yes.
of clients, of our clients.
What's your number that when does the number kick in for the objection level?
It depends. Because we've got a myriad of services, if there's a particular service that falls within that 2 kilometre, the number is a lot less, because then we would base it on the number of people that would access the service. So we could have, like the policy is still being drafted right now, but it'll be maybe like 50 to 100, because our objection will primarily be based on the fact that we've got a service in that particular area. If we don't have a service, then we would be looking at, we would ultimately want to see like at least like 100 plus. But then we don't just look it up 100 plus. We need to see, do we have clients here that are struggling with alcohol harm? So if we have clients, if we have like 100 clients in the area that we don't have a service there, and they only access us for food, and there's no sort of history in regards to alcohol harm, and then we would have a less likelihood to object. But if we're looking at the area, we've got, you would have noted our different services that are just down the road, we've got a significant number of clients, then we would definitely object to a store that comes into that area purely because of the number of our clients.
And so I've noticed that some of the services and that you're providing in housing and so forth, you've actually increased. And so if you had concerns about that area, why have you increased it when there were at that stage 2 off licenses in that area?
Why have we increased our services?
And no, like in terms of adding residential accommodation and so forth.
Because there's a significant level of need.
So you wouldn't think to put it somewhere else, you just put it in Nawton? Or is it that you only can add villages and that extra accommodation in that area?
Sorry. So why would we, if there's off-license stores, we should move our service? Is that the question?
No, I'm just asking if that's a consideration when you're expanding your services in an area, or it's, I understand when it's families that are coming to you, but when you are putting in extra accommodation and so forth.
Yeah, so prior to the accommodation being there was a church, it was the Grandview Court. And so there was a significant level of housing, and particularly large housing. That's the only Salvation Army social housing that has 4 bedrooms. And there was a significant level of need here in Hamilton. And so we developed the church site into the social housing that it is now. Yeah, and because we own that piece of land as well, so it's just a lot easier for us to build on the resources we have.
Yeah. In terms of your objection, I'm sorry, jumping around there, going back to the objection, which is page 126 of the bundle. What did you read the application? Because you've talked about here about your concern about there's no information about external signage. Did you read in the application about what the proposal was about external signage?
Yeah.
So why are you concerned about the lack of information about that?
I think it's a common concern for us to highlight like advertising issues. But I did read in the application that the applicant won't advertise around sales and so more advertising.
Yeah, so does that satisfy? But obviously in the application on page 11 it talks about there's to be no external advertising of alcohol products on the premises. So do you have other concerns? Because you read the application but you've still put that in your objection. So I just wanted to know what else do you want to see from the applicant in terms of that?
That is, I mean, ultimately, we want this license declined, but if it does go forward, that is, yeah, no external sort of sales and marketing other than the branding.
Okay,
Is
so,
what we
so
asked
so as they said in the application, they weren't going to do that. So you mentioned in your objections, so I just thought, was there something else? I just wanted to check if this.
No.
No, okay. And then at paragraph 15, you talk about concerns, the Salvation's concerns about you talk about super liquor. Why is it important to you whether it's to the Salvation Army, whether it's a super liquor?
As I said before, we engage in sort of alcohol licensing right throughout the country, and there have been sort of instances where super liquor doesn't, not just super liquor, but other liquor franchises, I guess, where they don't necessarily hear the voices of communities.
So you're saying you wouldn't want them to be associated with super liquor in particular?
No, I'm just saying that in other experiences, there've been issues with not just super liquor, but other franchises where there's been sort of disregard for community concerns.
Okay, well, I just want to be unclear from what you've written here, whether you want it to be with super liquor or you don't want it to be with super liquor. Can you tell me which way you're going with that? Would you prefer it to be independent or with a franchise?
Neither.
So you just don't want it there?
Yeah.
But if it was there, what is your preference? Because you've written about it, so it's obviously that's been considered by Salvation Army.
I guess that one of the things about being able to go under a franchise is that there's that wider structure and framework that's in place. Ideally, we wouldn't want an off license there, but we have noted in working with some other franchises that there are rigorous processes, frameworks, and safeguards that the franchise has put in place. But again, we've also noted in other instances in working with some other franchises that they don't necessarily abide by what the franchise has put out. So, yeah. Sorry, I didn't really answer your question, but yeah.
That's okay. In terms of what are your concerns with this? Do you know the applicant? Do you know the director? Have you met with the applicant before?
No.
Okay, what are your concerns with the applicant's track record at other premises?
I think just coming into an extremely vulnerable community like I is a concern. And being able to work in a community like Nawton with the types of with the sort of families that we support that live in the area is often really complex. And so ensuring that if the DRC does decide to grant this application, that the applicant would be able